Hi, I'm Tricia at Club Scrap, and you've arrived at the Wishes card making workshop. I'm so glad you're here. We're really going to be learning a fun kinetic card called the wiper card. You're going to love it. You're going to want to make more of those. And then we'll also make 2 other card styles for a total of 12. Before we get started, I just want to quick mention that you can adjust your playback speed settings on your YouTube channel. So if you're new to this and you want to just slow things down, adjust it to 0.75 and you should be able to keep up just fine. Once you've gone through a few rounds of these card workshops with me, you'll keep up with me perfectly. Let's get started. So I have my Wishes card kit instructions printed right here. I usually keep the instructions to my right. And then you'll have your card kit. I'll set aside the envelopes. We are going to be using those in a little bit. I'll set aside the goodies. There are some charms, some ribbons. We are going to be showcasing those items later, but for now, what needs to take center stage is the paper. And I'm even being careful where I put this one because it's quite wild. So let's sort the paper into the order we're going to be using it. So I'm going to just put it in the crook of my arm here so it's upright and I can see it easily. I'm going to grab a sheet of the dark gray, then 1 sheet of the light gray. So that's how you can compare the two. Next up, find a piece of that yellow, and everyone here at Club Scrap loves this yellow. It's a nice buttery shade of yellow, and then a beautiful warm shade of ivory. So that was dark gray, light gray, yellow, and ivory. Let's find all those colors one more time. Dark gray, light gray, yellow, and ivory. Next up, we have 2 prints. We're going to put those on our pile face down, and then from the cut apart sheets, and be mindful they might be facing away from you, so turn them over. You're going to find the one that has this cute little dandelion strip on the right edge. Put that face down, followed by this one that has the circles down here at the bottom. Put that face down, and lastly put this fun little sheet of holographic paper face down. Flip that whole pile back over again, and we're going to place everything to our left so the dark gray is on top. Now we have 2 sets of instructions for trimming the plain paper. So we'll be doing each color once with 1 diagram and each color again with another diagram. And that is the cool efficiency of this method that we're about to experience here. So before we trim, I want to make sure we're going to be trimming the paper with the grain facing the right way, because later on we'll be folding it. So to find our grain, I'm going to hold the paper by the center of any edge. Just hold it by the center and then wiggle the paper, listen to the paper, and observe how flexible or stiff it may be. Then I'm going to just grab an adjacent edge. This is going to be loud, not flexible at all. This is quiet and flexible. So when I place this paper in my trimmer, I want it to bend easily from left to right, like that. Take the next sheet of the light gray, noisy, quiet. So I want it to go into the trimmer so that it bends in this direction from left to right, and then plop it in. I'm going to stack these neatly together. I'll unlock the blade of my guillotine style trimmer. And if you're not using this style of trimmer, you'll probably have to trim each paper individually. Let's begin by trimming at 7 3/4. So 7 plus 1, 2, 3 columns on my trimmer toward the left. Make sure your paper is flush here at the top so that you're going to get a nice 90-degree angle with the blade. Push down here to keep the papers from moving around, and then slice. Okay, rotate this paper that's in the trimmer right now, and we'll cut it at 9 and 4.5. 4.5. Okay, take all 4 of these pieces, the 2 that are in your trimmer and the 2 that just fell, and we're going to set these aside in a pile to be scored. Now bear with me on this narrow strip. We've got a little bit of strange rotating and trimming to do, but it's pretty easy. I'm going to have you take that rectangular piece and cut it at 5. Then rotate the piece in your trimmer so it's vertical and trim it at 2. Now, I really want to stay organized, so before I do anything else, I'm going to grab my Accordion Pocket File, and it has this little lip on the front. I'm going to put that underneath my trimmer base, and that allows me to file the pieces that we're creating into one of 4 different pockets. Now, if you don't have something like this, totally okay. Just maintain 4 piles, maybe label them A, B, C, and D with a Post-it note. And I'm going to put a link to for you to be able to purchase this accordion pocket file, either pre-made or a kit where you can make it yourself. All right, back to the piece at hand in your trimmer base. This measures 2 by 5 right now. We're going to plop that in pocket B as in Bravo. Then you have this really narrow little strip here. These pieces aren't going to be used, but I'll just put them in pocket D because I didn't use them. But if I decide to, they're in pocket D. Then I have this rectangle here. We're going to place this one in pocket C as in Charlie. And now I'm going to pick up this remaining strip here. Let's go ahead and trim this one at 11.5 and 5.25. Now the piece in your trimmer, rotate it so it's vertical and trim it at 4. All right, pieces I just made are going to go in pocket A. And then you have some really skinny guys that fell. Those are scraps. Then you have a larger pair of panels for pocket C as in Charlie. And then 2 more little scraps. Let's do that again with the yellow. So I'm going to find my grain direction, make sure it dips easily from left to right, and then the ivory, same thing. Quiet, noisy, quiet, and then we're dipping left to right here, and we'll cut at 7 3/4 again. 7 3/4. Push down. A quick tip, if you're not already doing this, is don't move the pieces that land. Just grab them when I tell you to grab them so that I know where they are. And then we'll rotate the piece in the trimmer, cut at 9 and 4.5. Take all of these future card bases and set them aside to be scored. And then we have that rectangular strip once again. So let's trim that horizontally at 5. And then we're going to just take that piece that's in the trimmer and rotate it and cut at 2. The piece in your trimmer, pieces rather, it goes in pocket B. You have a skinny strip that we didn't use for pocket D. And then we have this rectangle for pocket C, Charlie. Then we have this larger strip here. We'll trim horizontally at 11.5, 5.25. Rotate so it's vertical and trim at 4. And this piece in the trimmer goes in pocket A. We do have these tiny little strip scraps here. Then we have a larger panel for pocket C. And once again, some little bitty strips here. We're moving on to a new pattern. So let's take this gray, dark gray, and once we determine the grain direction, we're going to put it this time into the trimmer so that it pushes in easily from the top to the bottom. So last time we did left to right, now we're going to go top to bottom. And the reason is that later on, the trimmed piece we're about to make will be folded in that direction. So same for the light gray, top to bottom. Stack neatly, and we'll cut at 11.25. 11.25. And then slide it down to 7. Rotate the 7-inch piece and trim at 10. Now you've just made 2 large card bases here. I'm going to set those aside to be scored. And then we have this long skinny piece, and we're going to get a little crazy with this guy. All right, so bear with me. I'm going to have you trim at 6.5, 3.5, and then this piece, I'm going to need to rotate it and cut it at 1.5. I know, it's kind of crazy. 1.5. Okay, take this rectangle and put that on the pile to be scored. Then there's a really small little scrap we don't need. The next larger rectangle, pocket A, and then you have, again, 2 really small scraps. Then you have this long strip. We will trim this at 11. Set aside the larger pieces to be scored. And then this piece goes in pocket A. And this longer piece, we could trim it at 7, but sometimes I like to trim it when it's on the card. This is a tip you get for watching the video. I'm going to plop this in C, Charlie, just as it is. All right, one more round of this pattern. So we're going to take the yellow, check our grain direction, dipping easily from top to bottom. And then with the ivory, same thing. Make sure it pushes in easily this way. Stack neatly, and our first cut again is at 11 1/4, and then 7. Rotate and cut at 10. Set these aside to be scored, and then grab this narrow strip. I'm going to get funky. We'll cut at 6 1/2. And 3 1/2. Rotate and cut at 1 1/2. Now, even with a trimmer of this size, I can still make that nice cut as long as I push down on the clear bar. The piece in here gets scored. This is a scrap. The rectangle pocket A. We have 2 more little scraps we can get rid of. Then we have our large piece here. We'll trim at 11. Set aside to be scored. The little strips in pocket A, the longer strips in pocket C, as in Charlie. Here we are at the print. Now, this first print, I want you to place it in the trimmer so that the top of it is on the left edge. And we'll cut at 10 and 5. Now you just made 2 pieces the same. So I'm just going to stack them neatly together, and we'll cut at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4 of these pieces go in pocket A, and 2 of them go in pocket B, bravo. You've got these 2 little narrow strips plus this long strip. It's all a scrap. So I'm going to pop those in D in case I want to include them somewhere. And we're moving on to page 2 of our instructions. When I trim this print, I'm going to trim it so it feels right side up to me. And our first cut is at 11 3/4. So that's going to take off a really tiny strip. Then slide over to 8 and 4. The piece in the trimmer and the one that just fell, they should be the same. We'll stack those neatly and cut at 6. And all 4 of these panels go in pocket C, Charlie. This strip will trim at 10 and 5. And these pieces are placed in pocket B, bravo. That leaves us with a really skinny printed strip. I'm just going to get rid of that. And then this guy, if you want to put it in D, you can. And now we've arrived at our Cutaparts. So what we need to do here is remove that outer perimeter of the sheet where it says remove paper outside of corner cutting guides. And if you look carefully at each corner, there's like a little crosshair. The goal is to align that registration mark with the outside edge of the blade on your trimmer. And I like to look at the top and the bottom edge of the blade. The outside edge is kind of like your 0. So when I put this in initially, I can't quite see the edge of the blade down here at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is cut close to those guide marks this time. And I'll come back later on my final rotation and clean that up. Now I rotate, and this time, because the paper is slightly smaller, I can see the corner of the blade or the edge of the blade here at this corner. So I'll make that slice. I'll rotate again and then take care of this edge. I realize this is a kind of a pain, but I could not get the gigantic commercial sized paper trimmers to do this cutting accurately enough. So we have to make those final cuts. If it's not perfect, will suffer from a butterfly effect down the line as we trim the individual pieces. So I have these little sniglets here. I'm going to throw those away and position the piece in my trimmer so that this little border strip here is on my right, and my first cut on this, in this case, is going to be at 11.5. Okay, then 10.5. You should always be able to confirm that you're not going to go through any pieces of artwork. Then 9.5, 7.75, and 4.75. All right, rotate this piece so it's horizontal. Now, there's some just bonus artwork here on the end. I didn't end up using it, but if you wanted to, you could. But for right now, I'm just going to trim that off. So I'll cut at 10.5, 8.75, 7, 5.25, and 3.5. This piece right here goes in pocket A, alpha, and then you have 4 strips that are the same size. Those can go into pocket B, bravo, and then you have your bonus. I'm going to put that in pocket D. The next pieces, we'll just trim these horizontally at 9, 6, and 3. And all of these will be used in card set B, bravo. Then we have this long strip with the little yellow dandelions on the right. Make sure these are on the right, okay? Then we'll cut at 11, 8.25, 5.5, and 2.75. These 4 pieces, pocket A, alpha, and then this little dandelion, I think I used it in C, so I'll just pop it in there. The next 2 pieces, I think we can trim these at the same time. So the words pull should be on your left. We'll cut at 8.5 and 4.25. So all 4 of the pulls go in pocket B for our kinetic card, and then the other 2 pieces I didn't use. So I'm going to pop those in D because I could always change my mind. Same with this guy. I didn't use the little strip, I don't think. But you can use it on the inside of a card or wherever you want. This is the final sheet of Cutaparts. I'm going to get that out of the light over there. And we need to just clean up those edges. So the first cut, again, is going to be shy of that line, just to make the paper small enough so that when I rotate it, I can see the edges really well. Get them lined up. Rotate and get this edge. Rotate once again. And then on this rotation, I can kind of look at the 12-inch mark here and see that it lines up really well over here. That last shaving. Get rid of your scraps, and then we can cut our final sheet of Cutaparts, making sure that you have these circles here on your right. We'll cut at 9.5 and 5. Rotate the 5-inch piece. We'll cut at 9, 6, and 3. You made 4 inner card sentiments for pocket C, as in Charlie. And grab the next strip. We'll trim at 9.75, 6.5, and 3.25. The 3 pieces that are the same here, those go in pocket A, alpha. Then you've got some little dandelion circles. I use these in pocket C. On this strip, we're going to put those little squares on the right at 11 inches, 8.25, 5.5, 2.75. 4 of these pieces that are the same size, plus these little squares. I'm going to show you how to trim the squares. We'll put these in pocket C. And then if you want, you can put the squares in. There's a little tiny rectangle on the right. Just trim them at 2 and then slide it down to 1. I like to bring it down a little bit so I can see the measurement. All right, so these little squares, I use them in card set C, totally optional. This is a little scrap. So we did pretty well in our scraps here. One last thing to trim is this holographic paper. This looks absolutely crazy on camera. I'm gonna trim it vertically at 4 1/4. And then horizontally at 5 1/2. And I'll put these two pieces in pocket B. Now grab the other strip and also cut that at 5 1/2 horizontally and place those in pocket B. Okay, I think that does conclude the trimming. So at this point, I can take my accordion pocket file, if you have one of those, make sure that from now on it lays flat on its back. It's really designed to be held up by your trimmer. So once your trimmer is gone, you want to make sure that this doesn't fall down onto the table and make you very, very sad. So grab your score pal and you can put this away for good, and let's move on with the next segment of our workshop. I have my score pal here and I have my pile of all the things that need to be scored. So I'm just going to tackle this in the order that the pieces landed. Let's take this 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece, place it in horizontally or the long way, and score it at 5 1/2. And there should be another lemony yellow color, score at 5 1/2 on that size. And then if you don't mind, just reach down a little further in the pile to find the other two that are that same size, 4 1/4 by 11, scoring at 5 1/2, and then this dark gray at 5 1/2. And then we'll just stack all these up, and these are going to go in pocket A. And then we have these really little guys. Let's hang on a second on that and look for that giant. Mine is ivory. It's 10 by 7. We're going to score this so it's horizontal, so the 10 should be here, and we'll score at 5. And then we'll grab this one and score at 5. Skip ahead to the light gray, score at 5. And finally, the dark gray, score at 5. And we can gather those and place them in pocket C, as in Charlie. Then we do have these little guys. Now, if you happen to be left-handed, you might be comfortable doing it this way, where you put it in your score pal and score it vertically at 1/2 inch, and then horizontally at 1/2 inch, and 3 inches. Okay? That's one way to do it. Now, if you're right-handed, I'm more comfortable if I just bring it vertically into the right side and score it at 11 1/2, then rotate it so it's horizontal and score at 11 1/2 and 9. And that way you're getting the same exact results, just a little bit more comfortable. We're making a tiny little pocket. So again, I'm going to score at 11 1/2, rotate and score at 11 1/2 and 9. 11 1/2, rotate 11 1/2 and 9. Okay, all of these little potential pocket pieces go in pocket A. And then we have 8 of these pieces that measure 4 1/2 by 7 3/4. So we're going to score them at 5 3/4, with the paper horizontally, of course, at 5 3/4, then flip the paper from the bottom up to the top and score again at 6 1/2. So you're putting 2 score lines, one in each direction. Let's repeat that for the next one. So that was 5 3/4, flip, 6 1/2. Let's see if we can remember those numbers. 5 3/4, flip, 6 1/2. All of them. 5 3/4, flip, 6 1/2. That puts 1 score on each side. 5 3/4, flip, 6 1/2. 2 more. 5 3/4, flip, 6 1/2. And oh, there's 2 more. 5 3/4, flip, 6 1/2. This is my last one. 5 3/4, flip, 6 1/2. And all of these, my friends, go in pocket B. Congratulations, we are finished with our score pal. We're just going to empty pocket A. Okay, so here's my accordion pocket file. Pocket A is quite full, and it's going to be quite fun to create these cards. The first thing I'm going to have you do is just isolate those card bases and flip them over so that you can feel the bump of the score line. I'm going to take it and fold it so that that bump of the score is on the inside of the fold, and then grab my bone folder and give it a nice crease. I never really trust that a score line is perfect. I always just make sure that the corners line up beautifully before I make my crease, because that's where you can just adjust it if needed. For any reason things aren't perfect. Okay. I like to turn in my instructions to the pages of the cards we're working on. So for us right now, that's page 3. We're going to start by taking that light gray card base, put it on your work surface, and then we're going to move over to yellow. Then we'll put the dark gray and the light, and the ivory to finish that out. Next, we're going to add the largest sized panels in your pocket. That's going to be the dark gray, the light gray, the ivory, and the yellow. Then we'll distribute one of each of the printed panels. Next up, I'm going to add one of these little seed packets to each envelope from the goodie pile. So go and find those. Next up, I'm going to make a couple little color changes, I think, to the color rotation here. I'm going to put a dark gray piece there, a yellow here, a light gray here, and an ivory there. And then we have some panels to distribute, so let's do the missing color. I think yellow is missing here, ivory here, light gray here, and dark gray there. Okay, then we need our outer sentiments, so let's start with scatter seeds of kindness on those top 2 cards, and then make a wish on the bottom 2. Then we're going to add one of these little narrow strips. Let's do yellow and light gray and ivory and dark gray. Last but not least, we have our inner sentiments. So we'll go with thank you for being all kinds of amazing. And we got 2 of those on the top. And then may your life be crowded with unexpected joys. Those will be on the bottom. So that was everything in the pocket. And I'm going to take this last card here and slide it into the smallest of the 3 envelope sizes. That card, this one, and this one. And we're going to make the first one together because all the other cards fall into place the same exact way. Let's start by making that little envelope, okay? So that's going to be with the scored piece of paper. And the instructions just say to miter the corners. That basically means that where those intersecting score lines are, we're going to cut out the corner and plus maybe just a little bit more so that we make a series of 3 little tabs. And then I can fold to bury the score line of the sides and then bring up the bottom. And that's all there is to it to make this pocket. I'm going to tack that down with some of our bookbinding glue. So I'll put a little glue here and on the edge there. Close the pocket. Notice the sides fold in first, then the bottom comes up. That will prevent a blockage when you want to try to insert something into the pocket, which in this case is going to be my little envelope. Now you can use the envelope, you can keep like the lid open, like so, facing you, and you can fill it with seeds. You could fill it with another little sentiment, and it holds a gift card, okay? It holds a Visa. It holds, your standard any dining gift card, okay? And then I'm gonna grab my corner rounder. This is a 3-in-1 corner rounder, and it has an R10, an R4, and an R7. That's just as the radius size. I'm gonna go with the smallest radius size, and I just wanna mention that you can punch through multiple layers at a time if you want to, but I have them all distributed already. So I'm just gonna round the corners. The corner rounding is totally optional, okay? I'm even gonna do the inner sentiment here with the rounder. And I'm gonna do this printed card panel. So if you wanted to make a few cards at the same time, you could stack the pieces that are the same size and then chomp through all of them. Okay, phew, that was a lot of corners, but I think it really looks nice. Then I'm going to take this guy and apply some adhesive and center that on there. Next, I'm just going to put adhesive on the bottom and place this on top of the pocket rather than inside. I kind of went back and forth, but I kind of liked it on the outside of the pocket so you could see the sentiment. I'm going to set that aside for a moment and then just nest the print onto the card panel. Then I'm going to take the pocket. I'm going to use my bookbinding glue here to just put it on the U-shaped pocket on the back and attach this kind of on the lower right corner of the card so that I've got a nice margin all around. For some embellishing with ribbon, which I like to do, I'm going to grab the satin ribbon and stretch it across the left edge of the card. And I typically use a fabric scissors. This one is by Singer. And I'm just going to stretch this across the left edge of the card just to kind of give it a little bit of anchoring. I'll flip that over and grab my tape and just secure that on there. You could use your ATG as well. Now I can attach this to the folded card base, making sure that it opens at the bottom because this is one of those vertical card bases. So I'll attach that. So pretty. Another thing you can do is just take this sweet little ivory grosgrain and you can tie a bow. I just like to tie a knot because then it won't risk, problems with the postal machines, right? So sweet, right? Okay, let's open up our card. And then I'll grab my grid ruler and I'll just use my bookbinding glue again in a needle tipped applicator. And I'll put a link to this if you don't have this type of supply on hand. Also, my 2x8 grid ruler is awesome because I like to just use it to help me figure out what's level. Especially if I wanted an inch up from the edge or something, the grid ruler makes sure that it's level. And then I'll finish with my inner sentiment. Thank you for being all kinds of amazing. That was seriously so easy, right? So now that you understand how that little pocket is made, you can finish this card and all the others are just like it. They're the exact same style, right? The same assembly, the same pocket, the same. Here I did a bow, here I did a tie-on. So you can decide, or you can do neither. These are your cards. All right, so I'm going to set this one aside. This is my sample then that goes with my other envelopes so that I know exactly how to assemble these later on, or you can just pause me and do that assembly now. After that, we're going to empty pocket B. This is my pocket B pile. It's quite impressive. I'm going to start out with my larger card bases here and get those distributed. These will be horizontal cards, and we'll start out by finding the two pieces of dark gray and just put them together. Next up, we'll find the two pieces of yellow. Put those together. Then the ivory, and finally the light gray. I'm going to try to be quick about this because this holographic paper is pretty wild on the camera. It's really more gentle in person, I promise. Then each one of these gets a print. And then we have a strip here of a color. So I'll go ivory here, light gray, yellow, and dark gray. And each one will get a strip of a sentiment. So every dream begins with a wish, and we'll do those on these left cards. And then roses are red, violets are blue, but they don't get around. And then we need our inner pop-up sentiment. So this is going to be happy birthday, and then the other half of the joke is like dandelions do on those two cards. Then each one will receive a little instructions to pull. All right, we have our medium-sized set of envelopes. So let's take those. I'm going to pop all the contents of each pile into one envelope, with the exception of the last card that we'll make together. So get this in there. Let's set these aside, and let's grab our official card sample. We're gonna have so much fun with this. We'll begin with the card bases, kind of as usual. What I want you to do is follow the lead of the score pal. So when you see a bump of a score line, it goes on the inside of the fold. So right now I'm looking at the bump. That's the innermost score line. I'm gonna fold there, and I'm gonna take my bone folder and just give it a little burnish. Now here I can see now a bump of another score line, which means it gets folded the other direction, right? Bury that bump inside the score, and I'll burnish that one as well. The second one is the same. So my first innermost score line here is a bump. So I'll fold it in. This is a bump, I fold that in, and that leads the way to this pleat that I'm trying to make. Set that aside momentarily, and I want you to grab the piece that has the little naked corner. And I'm going to be using my grid ruler. And I know a lot of you have wondered about this maybe, is like, why are there 45-degree angle lines on your ruler? Well, this is a case where I can line up the edge of the piece with that angled line printed on my ruler, and that gives me a perfect 45-degree angle. And if I bring the tip of this piece to the 1/2 inch mark, all I need to do now is pick up the corner of my card and fold up on along the ruler's edge. And what that's going to do is give me this perfect little triangular fold line. That's what I'm looking for. Or you can eyeball it. All right, so now I'm going to bring this back into the scene and position it so the pleat is on my right and looks like this. I can see a valley fold and a mountain fold. Then I'll take my little card here, and I'm going to place it so that the triangle is in the upper right corner of that valley fold, and it's about 1/4 of an inch from the top edge of the card. So if I put my ruler there, I'm at about 1/4 of an inch down. You don't want it too close to the top. You want it down, but you don't want it too far down either. So I find like 1/4 of an inch is kind of perfect. Then I'll take my bookbinding glue, and I'm going to put some glue on top of that little triangle that I made. So this is on the white side, or the plain side of that triangle. Next, I will push down on the pleat to trap that triangle inside. Okay? Just give it a second until you know it's going to stay. Then I'm going to add glue to this flap here. So if you're doing this, just kind of wait and watch to see how I do this. So I got glue on this flap. I like to use the liquid glue rather than like my ATG for this, because it gives me a little time to fine tune this. Now, the other piece that we made, we're going to make a sandwich out of. So when I add this other piece on top of that pleat, I want the other side of it to be a mountain and then a valley, okay? So I'm going to just aim for that, and then I'm going to line up those edges, and that's where having the liquid glue allows me to be nice and accurate with that. Okay, so then I'm going to flip this over and kind of open it up. And there's my little guy right there, trapped inside. So we're going to do the final sandwich here. I'm going to put glue on this tab and then close the card on top of it. Make sure it's nice and symmetrically aligned. Okay, so now I flipped it back over to where we started. And when I pull out on this, do you see how the happy birthday pops up? And the reason I do this first is because sometimes it's easy to lose track of where that little wiper is located, and you don't want to be tempted to assemble the card so that this happens. Okay, we want it coming out from the top. So now that the inside is done, I can take my printed panel here. We're going to just disguise it a little bit on top of that holographic panel. I think it's 1/4 of an inch reveal on that, so it's nice and level. And then I will add this to my card, knowing that it's right side up at this point. Okay. Now, do you notice that the sentiment is ivory, and so is the paper? The first thing I'm going to do is R4 the corners. That means the radius 4. The other thing I can do if I want is just take some ink and edge this to create a little contrast between this and the base layer. The ink I like to use for this one is our Ash ink pad, which is kind of like a soft gray. I'm just going to sponge some of that onto. You can do it directly from the pad as well, but I find that it's a little softer if you use a makeup sponge or some kind of other brush or sponge that you prefer for your ink application. Do you see how that creates just like a little bit more dimension there? And then I'm going to add this to this panel, which you could also edge. I don't want to go too crazy with it. And I left the corners on the panel square. Then, if you would like to add a little ribbon to the scene, I'm going to take this gorgeous yellow silk ribbon, cut at an angle, and then cut at an angle toward the other angle for a trapezoid type shape, fold it in half. And then I will take this and just kind of place it in the upper left corner of my phrase here and staple that on there. You could do any number of different ribbon style embellishments. I will apply adhesive to this, and with my ruler I just want to make sure that I'm staying level because I do tend to adhere things. Every dream begins with a wish. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. Okay, one last little detail. It's the pull so that the recipient knows what to do. And it was so much fun. My new girl here, Emily, she's never seen the wiper card before, and she was in my studio looking at the cards for the collection, and she looked at it, she saw the pull, she pulled it, it went, it was really fun seeing someone experience the mechanical card for the first time. So wasn't that easy? I hope that you've got it. I hope that you feel confident with it. And then let me show you the others. Let's see, we did the dark gray one together. Oh yes, one last thing. See, I'm so glad I peeked at this. We have these darling little charms. So the very last thing to do is to add some of our bookbinding glue to the back. I just make sure you get the most flat areas here with the glue. And yes, this should definitely be the last thing you do. And I'm going to place it right over where the printed dandelion is on the sentiment. It's the exact size of the charm. I wonder if someone was really thinking about that and planned it that way. Could very well be, Jacqueline. I don't know. Could it be? Our amazing designer, Jacqueline, is so good. Okay, so that's that. So you got your little charm there. And roses are red, violets are blue, but they don't get around like dandelions do. Love it. Okay, so those are your cards. What I would suggest again is take your finished card, pair it up with the remaining envelope, add it to the stack with your other samples, and move on to empty pocket C. As you empty pocket C, be aware that you do have some scraps in pocket D as well. So again, if you want to go back later and add more things, or think about those things while you're working on your cards. I did that and just thought, I'm good. I don't need to use anything else. I'm going to set this aside now that it's empty. Let's take our card bases, flip them all over so you can see the bump of the score line. This was a 90. And I'm going to make sure, once again, that I line up those corners really well before you make your final crease with your bone folder. By the way, if you don't have a bone folder that you love, or if you don't have one at all, or if the one you have is plastic, highly recommend this guy. It is a natural bone folder, and it is just so lovely. It's my favorite, and I've been using different bone folders for years. This shape actually is the one that I feel most comfortable with. So we're going to make 2 vertical and 2 horizontal cards. Our first vertical will be ivory, and the second will be dark gray. Then for the horizontal cards, they'll be yellow and then the light gray. Each card will get a panel. Let's find those largest panels from our stack here, and we'll distribute yellow, ivory here, light gray here, and dark gray. And then it's easy because we can do the prints. And what else can we distribute here? We've got our sweet little panels here. Let's go light gray on this one. And yellow here, finding our missing colors. Then dark gray and ivory. We have a rectangular sentiment. This first one's going to be with heartfelt sympathy. Then the other one will say thinking of you, and then the last two best wishes. We have inner sentiments, 2 vertical. So wherever a beautiful soul has been, there is a trail of beautiful memories, thinking of you during this difficult time. This one is wishing you strength for today and hope for tomorrow. So that could go either way, like it get well, or thinking of you, sympathy, anything. And then the other 2, may your special day be the beginning of another amazing year. This could be anniversary or birthday. We have these miscellaneous ones. I took a 1-inch punch and I scissor cut some of these to be used on the inside. The same for these little squares. I rounded the corners on the squares, inked them with ash ink, and then used them, I think, on the horizontal cards. I might as well just put those in there. And then we have our strips for the inside decor. So on the first card, looks like I might have used the light gray and then maybe the yellow. On this one, the dark gray on the yellow, and then the ivory on the light gray. Here we are again with our envelope system. So I'll pop this one in here, the 4th card, and those long strips are kind of a pain. You could have trimmed them to 7, but again, sometimes I like to just trim them when they're on the card so that it's perfect, not too short or too long if there's a slight error here. Now let's assemble this first one together. First thing I did, of course, was a little bit of R4ing. That's a technical term for rounding the corners to the R4. You could even do the card base if you wanted to, because the punch will go through 2 layers at a time. I'm going to do the inner sentiment. I'll do the outer sentiment. And this guy. This card is wonderfully easy. I'll take the sentiment here and just go ahead and nest that while I'm at it. And then I'm going to set the card base aside. I'll grab my printed panel and add it to the slightly larger. I think this is 4 by 6 and this is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. Okay, next I'm going to show you this little trick with the ribbon. I got a nice amount of ribbon here to work with, so this thin stuff. I'm going to trim 2 lengths. One just a little wider than the card base width. And I'm going to grab some tape right out of the gates. And I'm going to think in terms of the bottom-ish area of the card. So I'm going to take this one piece of ribbon and kind of stretch it across at an angle. Flip around to the back and tape those ends down. I'll grab 2 more pieces of tape and grab another piece of ribbon. And I'm going to do it so that it crisscrosses kind of like on the right side of the bottom. Okay, flip and tape. Then I'm going to come back one more time with my ribbon and go underneath the crisscrossed area and tie. There. Now you have a really nice low profile knot, and you've got the crisscross going on, and you didn't waste ribbon going all the way around the back both times. At this point, I can add my panel to the card. I think it's 3/8. Let me just see. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes, 3/8 or 3 cubes on your ruler will get you nice and centered. Now for this last piece, I did use some foam adhesive circles to give it a little bit of dimension. I like the foam adhesive circles that we have because they're not too lofty. Because again, I'm always kind of concerned about how are things going to go when this gets to the post office. Your placement of this could be anywhere. I kind of liked it actually flush with the right edge of the card. I just thought that was really pretty, but your call. And then on the inside, if I take this long strip that we didn't trim earlier, and I'll just place it against the card, and I can stop my adhesive when I reach the bottom edge of the card. Then I'll take my grid ruler and I'm going to go, I'll go an inch from the edge. I'll line up the top edge with the ruler. Okay, then now that I have it attached, I can bring this to my trimmer for a really nice straight cut or use scissors. And then I'll take my inner sentiment here. Apply adhesive and place it. I'm going to do to the right and centered-ish so I have plenty of room to write a little note. And I also have room if I want to add like those cute little, I could add one of these little dandelions that I pop out of here. Honestly, I didn't love it when I cut this with scissors, but I did ink the edges with ash to kind of disguise my cutting marks. But if you have like a little punch or die cut that you could use to remove that, that'll add a lot, or omit it altogether. Totally your call. Okay, so that is the vertical card, just a few minor adjustments on the remaining ones. So the other vertical goes together the same way. And then this is the one we made together. On the horizontal card, I stretched one piece of the wide silk ribbon across and taped it, and then right next to it one piece of the narrow. That was so pretty. And this was inked with ash after I rounded the corners, and I tucked it behind the pop dotted sentiment. And then here's the inside. There's the ink edged round circle. I did the same thing on the other horizontal card. So the vertical and horizontal are just slightly different in assembly in that I didn't do the crisscross. I don't think I would have had enough ribbon to do the double crisscross on all the things. Plus on set A, I used some of the ribbon, not a lot, but very pleased with how those turned out. And hope you are too. Okay, how's that for an hour-long card making session? It was very fun, and I think these cards are relatively simple, and I think you're gonna find a lot of joy over those wiper cards. They're so sweet and fun to put together, easier than one might think, and they really pack a nice surprise for the recipient. So I hope you have some fun people to send those wiper cards to who will appreciate them. But I think everybody these days appreciates a handmade card sent in the mail and not a Facebook message for their birthday. One of my friends sent me a message thanking me for the card and said I gave her the only card she could hold in her hand. And what a precious gift it is to be able to do that for those that we love. So thank you so much for joining me for the Wishes card making workshop. If you got any benefit or learned something new during this workshop, I'd love to hear about it. Leave me a message in the comments or just leave a like. That really helps our channel so much. If you're not a member of Club Scrap and you're curious about it, we have a team here ready and willing to help you, and we'd love to have you join us. And anyone can shop these kits and take these classes, but members do always save quite a bit on kits. It's a great value. So I hope to see you again in another card workshop or any other type of workshop we offer at Club Scrap. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel so you don't miss out on future news from the warehouse. Again, I'm Tricia Morris from Club Scrap. Thanks for joining me.